Hi out there, people. Welcome back to the Nicholas Video Network. Today we're going to do another video here at the desk because this video has to do with some recent internet drama. So I figure it makes sense to do it here at my computer so I can look things up while I'm telling you about them, just for reference. This light on or off. I can never really tell what the best lighting setup is in here, but my lamp is hanging from a coat hanger, so it's not exactly a perfect scenario. It's just enough to see by, and I can't have it shining in my face. So today I'd like to go back to a subject that I haven't talked about in a while, that being silly internet drama, some classic infighting here on the good old World Wide Web. Seems more and more hostile day by day, but I'm going to stick it out and stay on here and, continue to post content just on and on and on. Yeah. Man, millennials always say they remember a world before the internet, but being Gen Z, I don't remember that at all. And I was taught growing up, the internet is going to be great. It's going to change the world for the better. Man, it's such a tool. Oh my gosh, the internet's great. Now, as a Gen Zer, I'm becoming a bit skeptical of that as of late. I'm coming to question that. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is this channel, The Second Story. This channel here on YouTube has gotten very big as of lately. It's got over 100,000 subs. Not anywhere near my numbers or anything, and only 18 videos. I find that oftentimes these very big channels get going with the minimal amount of videos that one can make. Not like my over 900, This channel is pretty interesting as far as they go. The first video is all about Christopher Nolan's movie Oppenheimer, and that came out a year ago as 51,000 views. In it, the lady who runs the channel, Hillary Lane, basically just talks about how Oppenheimer has a non-linear style of storytelling, and this is confusing. You can't necessarily follow it. Now, having watched Memento, I understand that non-linear storytelling is just kind of an aspect of Christopher Nolan's style, and some people aren't going to get it. Some people might not like Oppenheimer. I, for one, really liked Oppenheimer, but I understand that it's not for everyone, so I watched through this 59-minute video just to see what she had to say about Oppenheimer, and I didn't really agree with a lot of it. I went, it's okay for a movie to have a non-linear structure. It's a little experimental, but obviously Christopher Nolan can both have his own style and play into what's popular with audiences, and Oppenheimer was a big-time blockbuster, very popular. I mean, people liked it. I watched this video just to see, hey, what's a negative take on Oppenheimer one could have, if any. I mean, from everything I saw, it was a good movie, but I'm willing to see reviews of movies I like that someone else doesn't like, and go, someone else has a different opinion than me. I get where she's coming from with the non-linear storytelling structure. Makes complete sense. It's not everyone's favorite style of movie. So then the next few videos, the next couple, 5 or so, are called Creating Interesting Characters, A Beginner's Guide, Don't Give Up on Your First Draft, Anyone Can Build a Great Character Arc. And in these videos, there's just a very basic sort of, here's how you write, here's basic technique, like a yo-yo tutorial or something like that. It's very inoffensive stuff. Subplots can't hurt you. And I watched these. I didn't agree with everything she had to say as far as they go either, because a lot of it is somewhat general, and she doesn't necessarily apply herself to different styles of writing. Just like how you wouldn't necessarily enjoy a movie like Oppenheimer if you're not familiar with Christopher Nolan's specific style. You might say, these are basic rules that can apply to any writer, when in actuality, writers should probably find their own technique. But I get what she's trying to do here. Share some technique, I would do the same if I had more time on my hands. In particular, didn't agree with the video, Don't Give Up on Your First Draft, where she talks about how when you're writing your first draft, you just shouldn't care about anything. You should just write and write. Because when I write my first draft, I do fix like typos, and if there's a word that's redundant, I go back and replace it. You know, whatever. I fix it up a little bit because I don't just want it to be complete garbage. And really, I don't have second or third drafts when I write. I just write, and then what I write is what I write, and I just kind of accept it. If there's like a huge mistake or something that someone notices after I give them a book and they're like, oh, you know, this is a big mistake here, this happened in so-and-so year instead of this, you know, I'll go back and fix that. But other than like a colossal error that just makes me look stupid, I don't really have separate drafts. Not every writer does. I'm sure there are plenty of great novelists over the years who don't have separate drafts. But it's just general advice. So the next legitimate media analysis video on the channel is This Is Why We Never Got Another Lord of the Rings. So there's a big reactionary thumbnail that says how to destroy fantasy literature, and it is obviously very hyperbolic. The reason that we never got another Lord of the Rings mainly is just because Tolkien was under very unique and specific circumstances, and he was undoubtedly a genius, but like, I'm sure there are some good fantasy books out there. I don't know what they are. Fantasy isn't really my affair. I'm more into sci-fi, but there are some good fantasy books out there, if you look for them. But in the video, she just kind of goes over this big conspiracy with the big publishers where they basically commodified Tolkien's work and tried to make the next Lord of the Rings, and it didn't work, and there's a lot of corruption in that regard. Nothing in this video is too controversial either. It's a little edgy for my taste, because it does ignore that, like, even a series like Game of Thrones, which I don't necessarily like, I get why some people do like it. Like, it's got a lot of character and world building and lore and depth and shit, you know. I get why people would kind of like Game of Thrones. But she says, oh, you know, Game of Thrones, anything after, you know, frickin' Dorsai or whatever, not good. There's just no good fantasy literature after Tolkien, which I do think is a bit of a reductive statement. But the conspiracy she talks about, how publishers conspire to make the most, like, mass commodified option possible, yeah, I think that's absolutely true. I think there's a reason that fantasy kind of chokes off and it doesn't really develop like other genres do, and it's mainly because people have a vested interest in making money, and publishers can screw the authors over. Like, there's a very basic thing that anyone could buy into. So, completely plausible. Then we start getting into the really controversial stuff. Modern heroes are weak and boring. The absolute degeneracy of modern writing. Modern villains are pitiful and impotent. How modern schools make terrible writers. The anti-hero is a lie. And most recently, fan fiction has destroyed writing, and AI is here to stay, and no one cares. So over the course of just about a year, you see the spiral from nothing, you know, just vanilla type writing advice to completely extreme, off the deep end, reactionary type content. But I do have to say, some of the points she makes are pretty applicable. Like, for instance, you might look at a video like Modern Heroes Are Weak and Boring and go, oh, this is just going to be a complete dismissal of all modern heroes. But she does point out that John Rambo from the Rambo series is a hero in the classical vein more than someone like Batman. And I'd have to agree with that. As someone who's read the Odyssey and seen what the classical heroes like Odysseus get up to, they're not completely virtuous, perfect people with no flaws. John Rambo really is a hero in the more classical vein. She's completely right about that. Much more of a hero than like Luke Skywalker or something. John Rambo is like the modern Odysseus. He says, you know, I'm out for blood, I'm going to kill everyone that fucked my life up, yada yada. That's true. That is actually a true statement that I have to agree with if I'm being intellectually honest with myself. Same goes for modern villains are pitiful and impotent. This is a problem with modern stories, is that, like, villains are too tame. They don't do things that are inherently despicable, you know, they don't do things that are, like, completely sick. So I do agree that the best villains are capable of stepping over boundaries that the hero doesn't. Like, for instance, is Darth Vader a better villain than Supreme Leader Snoke? Fuck yeah. And that's mainly because Darth Vader was conceptualized at a point when villains had to have some gusto to them, and Supreme Leader Snoke is just the result of a mass commodified entertainment industry that just goes, oh, let's make him like Darth Plagueis, he's big and scary, and he sits back in his chair, and then we don't even explain who or what the fuck he even is. He's a robot, I guess? Okay. So, like, yeah, modern villains, on average, are pitiful and impotent, and this is something I've even heard plenty of people my age say, and they go, yeah, man, this villain sucks. This hero sucks. They're very tame, basic, boring, fucking bleh. So I totally get what these videos are coming from, and what they're trying to say is that modern villains are pitiful and impotent, and that's mainly because we can't conjure up this complete maniac boogeyman like Spring Heel Jack or whatever anymore. You know, in the popular consciousness, we're not really capable of that level of folklore because the entertainment industry has commodified everything to make it safe and palatable and market tested. I see where she's coming from. Now, the obvious conclusion to reach would just be, wow, the entertainment industry these days sucks, and it doesn't let new ideas flourish, and it doesn't let talented young new filmmakers come into the scene and put their own spin on things, or in this case, I guess, talented young new writers who have ideas and have things to say about the world, but are just consistently stifled or told, oh, the market won't favor you if you go in with a new idea. That's too much risk. You take too much risk. The obvious solution to this is to go, hey, the market needs to be restructured. We need to prioritize new ideas over safe ideas. This is relatively obvious to me as an artist. But this isn't necessarily the conclusion she draws. There are the four most recent videos. Modern schools make terrible writers, the anti-hero is a lie, and fan fiction has destroyed writing, and most recently, the AI one. Modern schools make terrible writers goes in depth about how learning phonics is the most important thing. She's a really big fan of phonics for whatever reason. I can't speak on that. I don't know about phonics really, but if they are good at literacy, then, you know, whatever. If learning phonics from an early age does tend to make one more literate than not learning phonics, then, you know, okay. And then there's the anti-hero is a lie. Now, this is a pretty interesting video because she goes in depth about how modern anti-heroes aren't really anti-heroes, or anti-hero has been watered down as a term to the point where it means nothing. I think, for instance, she points out that even Bilbo Baggins is described sometimes as an anti-hero. Says that's not accurate, which I have to agree. Bilbo Baggins is not an anti-hero by any means. He's just a run-of-the-mill, pretty average protagonist. I honestly don't know what website would say that Bilbo Baggins is an anti-hero. That's very silly. But the point is, I agree with a lot of the stuff said in this video, too. In one of these three videos, anti-hero, villain, or hero, one of them, she says that Batman isn't a vigilante. Like, John Rambo's a vigilante, but Batman isn't a vigilante. And I have to agree with this, too. By definition, if Batman operates under the jurisdiction of the GCPD and works with Commissioner Gordon, he's not a vigilante. In some interpretations, like Matt Reeves' The Batman or Year One or whatever, Batman's a vigilante because he's just starting out and he's not authorized by the police. So by definition, he is a vigilante because he's operating outside the law. But as of the current canon, the current status of Batman, where he works with Commissioner Gordon and they put the bat signal up top, not a vigilante. Batman 89, Batman's a vigilante because the bat signal doesn't exist yet and he operates on his own terms. Then Batman Returns, he gets the bat signal, so at that point he's not a vigilante anymore. Like, this is a very basic, inoffensive statement that most people would agree with if they understood what a vigilante was. She also points out that, like, for instance, Daredevil isn't a vigilante because Matt Murdock is a lawyer, so, like, by definition, he always works inside the law, not a vigilante. I will say that that creates some interesting storytelling possibilities. Like, here's a superhero that is a lawyer and has to do things legally even though he is also a superhero. That can lead to some very interesting conflict, and obviously the writer of Daredevil has to understand the legal system extremely well at any given point in time, but not a vigilante. Like, the Punisher is a vigilante, Daredevil isn't a vigilante. I know that sometimes in the comics they interact, but, you know, Like, this is a very basic statement that most people, I think, if they were honest with themselves, would agree with. You can't just call anyone a vigilante or an anti-hero if that label doesn't apply. Some people are just heroes, you know. Some characters just work within the bounds of the law, and that's okay, but you can't call them vigilantes because they're not. So recently, and this is the reason I'm really making this video, I saw some anti-second story videos that were made by, I guess you don't call it BreadTube anymore, but the remnants of like the leftist sphere on YouTube that during the Obama era was very prolific and outspoken, and today it's kind of watered down. I saw some videos declaring that this channel, all these videos about villains and heroes and writing advice and everything, it's all some kind of subtle conservative propaganda. I don't really agree with this statement.
This video, for instance, is called Right-Wing Grievance Culture Posing as Literary Criticism, and if it was more honest, then the title would be Good Faith Literary Criticism Delivered with a couple conservative talking points thrown in because everyone has implicit biases. I don't really expect to see a title that honest here on YouTube.
I think that it is, from a conservative stand, from everything I can tell. I mean, this lady seems pretty conservative. She seems to have the idea of, oh, this is how it was back in my day and back when writing was good, back during James Joyce, and you know, the modern writers just suck because it's all regurgitative shit. In particular, the two videos, The Absolute Degeneracy of Modern Writing, where she goes on a tirade about women's smut books that are just designed for sexual gratification, like, you know, 50 Shades of Grey or whatever. Oh, here's my hot lover, he's going to caress my neck. Then we got Fan Fiction Has Destroyed Writing, where she goes on an angry tirade about fan fiction and how regurgitative it is, and how it's not really interesting to write a story where you just take other people's intellectual property and make up something that they do, and that's not as challenging as making up your own characters and world and shit. I do have to say I agree with that sentiment. Fan fiction is not as good as your average writing, mainly because fan fiction is usually written by amateurs who just want to see, you know, their favorite superhero do so-and-so. Wow, here's my story of how Superman flew around with me. Cool, but you're not making your own superhero. You're not Joe Siegel and Jerry Schuster here. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. I always forget. Point being, you're not them. You're just making up a story about Superman and you. And that's cute, but it's not creating a new character. And that's what we need to do these days. We need to create new characters, possibilities, worlds, opportunities, all of that. So I agree with the sentiment that fan fiction isn't as good as other writing. This is probably a pretty common perspective among a lot of writers, that fan fiction is a good entry point, but eventually you should try to make your own shit. I have never written a piece of fan fiction because there's never been an intellectual property I see where I just go, wow, this is so fucking good that I have to make a story with these exact characters. I'll modify them a little bit, I'll add my own spin, my own touch, you know, the creative process. But these are the two videos that she got under heat for, and she's labeled essentially a conservative reactionary on the level of like Ben Shapiro, who just looks at every new intellectual property that goes out and says, you know, this is shit, oh, the new Superman movie is shit, oh, the new so-and-so is shit. But really, I don't think this is the same, and I think it's kind of a reductive standpoint to just dismiss these videos as a conservative reactionary propaganda.
Admittedly, there are some points the second story makes that I don't agree with and do paint her in kind of a reactionary conservative light. Like in some of the videos she says, you shouldn't care about people's feelings when you write because you are too self-indulgent with your literature. And like obviously if all your writing is cheap smut about, oh, you know, here's how Baywatch happened to me and I went down to the beach and the Baywatch girls had sex with me, then obviously that's very self-indulgent literature and is just designed to assuage your feelings. And really, I'm pretty sure that's all that video means, is that you care about your feelings too much and you don't make universal, timeless classics that endure. But then again, a Baywatch fanfic is not necessarily meant to endure. It's meant to just satisfy a very short-term, instant gratification sort of need. And that is a problem, but I do see why some people would look at the second story video and go, oh yeah, this is very reactionary. She says, I shouldn't care about people's feelings. That's a lot like Ben Shapiro says about facts don't care about your feelings. But if I'm going in with good faith here, I'm going to argue that she probably just means you should have morally complex, ambiguous characters that aren't 100% good or 100% evil or fall into any kind of moral paragon type archetype, because that's just not realistic. And writers like Cormac McCarthy and whatever write very horrible characters that are really fucking interesting. And I agree with that 100%. You should be able to write characters that are vile bastards, because that's how you confront the human condition.
The reason I say this is because of the most recent video. AI is here to stay and no one cares. The most recent video at the time of recording this, where it is clear that this lady on the Second Story channel, Hillary Lane, is clearly like in the grip of a paralyzing fear that AI is literally going to kill you if you continue to use it. I don't necessarily agree with such a reactionary viewpoint. I think that's a bit hyperbolic, and I don't necessarily feed into the fear machine as much as this video does. But I do have to say, I agree with about everything she says in this video, about how if we continue to use generative AI, in a couple decades, everyone's brain is going to have atrophied. It's going to have necrotized, no one will be literate, everyone will be a fucking idiot, and no one will be able to do anything. I don't think that we're going to continue using generative AI. I think we're going to get rid of it pretty fucking soon here. I think the market is going to crash, and generative AI will be relegated to the past as a technology like Agent Orange or asbestos that we just don't really need anymore because it's detrimental to human life. I think we need to recognize that. But I don't necessarily take as just terrified an approach as she does. She's clearly totally stressed out in this fucking video. It's actually kind of impressive, like how raw and existentially terrified she is in this video. It's a very intense watch. I sat through the entire 57-minute piece, and at the end I was like, well, yeah, that's a pretty good diagnosis of the situation we're in here. Now, I say this because obviously she is, a very conservative, girly girl, trad wife type figure that takes a very old-fashioned type approach to writing, and, this is how it should be back in the good old day and all. But even she can tell AI fucks the mind, like beyond recognition. It just destroys your capacity for critical thought. And it's a very good video, maybe the best yet out of her, I have to say. It's very well researched. It links to all kinds of scientific papers in the description that go into detail about how scientifically AI does decrease the functioning of the human mind. It fucks your mind over to engage with it. And I have to agree with that if I'm being honest. I don't take a reactionary stance like going to kill us with 100% certainty. But on the other hand, I don't take the extremist stance of, oh, everything she says is completely without merit because she talks about how fan fiction is bad, and I think fan fiction is actually good. Like a lot of these counter-narrative videos that are being created have to say about, oh, fan fiction is actually great, love fan fiction, it's just the best. Whereas I take the nuanced position, and I don't really resort to clickbait. And that's why I don't have the viewership of either side, because I take a moderate, realistic stance where, yes, you can acknowledge that someone comes from a certain perspective, exists within a certain context, but they can make some points that I agree with, if they're literate and articulate enough to make these points in a reflective, self-aware capacity. Obviously, artificial intelligence is something the right fucking loves. You look at a new Ben Shapiro video, he's got tons of AI graphics crammed in there. You look at Donald Trump, he posts some fucking, AI-generated graphic every day, and that's because fascists hate art. They don't like self-expression. Fascism is antithetical to art, and that's why fascists love AI. because it destroys the human capacity to create art. It destroys the human mind. And even though I don't believe in such a thing as a secular humanist and an atheist, and I hesitate to use the term, AI does destroy your fucking soul. It destroys your individual attributes. This is not a controversial thing to say at all. So all these counter videos came out after she said fan fiction has destroyed writing. And they're like, no, actually, fan fiction is awesome, and it's great, and you're wrong, and everything you say is wrong. But now that she's said, AI is a danger to the entire human race, it's an existential threat on an unprecedented scale, now that she's said that, I really wonder how everyone that said she was just some kind of conservative pundit on the level of Ben Shapiro is going to respond now that she's said, AI sucks, which is generally a very leftist sort of sentiment from everything I can tell. I mean, the left seems pretty much on board with just fucking getting rid of AI, because it fucking sucks.
Up until very recently, actually, just a couple years ago, although I guess people don't remember this, it was considered an incredibly left-wing thing to be all pro-technology, love Silicon Valley, great Google, wow, Google's so environmentally friendly, YouTube's so great, Venmo, Uber, it's also great, all this technology is so great. And it was actually only very recently, with maybe the onset of the 2020s, that suddenly liking technology was more of a right-wing thing. So left-right is very fluid and subject to alteration on a whim, and I'm just glad that the left didn't immediately adopt AI and went, hey, hold on a sec here, it looks like these Silicon Valley fuckheads are pulling one over on us, and we're not stupid enough to fall for it. Like, I am really glad that happened. But during my adolescence, it was all, oh, you're going to work for Google and it's going to be great. They're the most environmentally conscious, progressive company on the face of the fucking planet. They're great, they're great. And all this technology optimism, all this obvious propaganda, we seem to be at a reckoning point with it right now where we're like, yeah, this is dangerous, this reckless, unorthodox, unregulated pursuit of technology, the next big thing, exponential, infinite growth that just goes on and on forever. Maybe this isn't so good for people. But that is a recent development in left-wing thought, which goes to show just how malleable political orientations can ultimately be. If you time traveled back to 2016 and asked the average person what they thought of LLMs, they'd be like, yeah, that's science, man, and science is great, and flat earth is the problem. But those scientists developing the AI machines, they're fucking awesome. They're smart, educated, conscious people, yo.
Have to wonder how people will respond to someone who ostensibly, is conservative. Maybe she doesn't even consider herself that. She doesn't say in any of these videos, oh, I buy into conservative talking points. It's obvious that from some of the things she says, she is certainly more conservative. But now that she's said AI is going to kill all of us, which is something that someone like Ben Shapiro would not probably say, I have to wonder what the backlash is really going to be, because this is like a very leftist sentiment. And at one point in the video she even says, as a human being you have dominion over the entire world and everything animal and vegetable and mineral and even digital, and we have control over our machines and anything else is an illusion. And that's like the most fucking secular humanist talking point ever. That's like the most secular humanist shit I've ever heard right there. To admit that, like, human beings have absolute control over everything because we're the most sentient species we know to exist. So, like, of course we do. I just have to wonder, like, are certain conservatives at the point where they have to admit that secular humanism is correct? At one point in the video, she talks about how AI religions are going to start being a thing. Obviously, this is like, oh, you're taking the sacred and you're defiling it. But is there a certain point at which conservatives do have to admit that, like, valuing human beings is important? Or we should give a shit about it? We should care about human beings existing, Because we're kind of special and cool and there's something neat about humanity? I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting thing that, like, someone like her, who, if you buy into these reaction videos, is like one of the most, conservative, right-leaning, basically a neo-Nazi, she literally says, like, humanity's important and people's individual attributes are important and writing's important, literacy's important, critical thought is important. I think we're currently dealing with a kind of political paradigm shift where the old labels of, oh, this is just totally conservative, this is just totally liberal, it doesn't really work anymore. We're entering a whole new unexplored political territory where the old-fashioned identity politics of just like, let's say this perspective is wrong because it's about fan fiction and I like fan fiction. Let's say this perspective is right because it's about AI and I don't like AI. I think this is kind of breaking down. I think eventually we'll have to realize that conservatives are people too, and at some point they will admit, oh my gosh, we've made the world into an unlivable shit show through our greed and careless behavior and just, all around scumbaggery. It is really interesting to see a conservative video about how AI is bad. That's something pretty damn interesting. Again, if this content is even considered to be by her conservative, which I don't even know if it would be. Maybe she doesn't even consciously register that she's repeating a lot of disproven conservative talking points like fan fiction is always bad, because I don't believe that fan fiction is always bad. There's some good fan fiction out there, I'm sure. It's just that, as with everything, there's nuance, and on average, most fan fiction is pretty crap. I don't necessarily take the hardline reactionary stance she does where she says, oh, fan fiction is just completely intolerable. That's a bit too extreme for me. But at the same time, I do have to admit, a lot of fan fiction is crap, and you're not going to become a great writer by always doing fan fiction. Eventually, you need to exercise your brain and make some new characters. I think it's a really good example of identity politics at work that these videos would get more and more extreme to the point where she's talking about this impending machine apocalypse. It goes from like basic ass, very dry, non-offensive writing stuff to, oh, we're all going to die in a couple decades, there won't be a world anymore. And you can just kind of see the mental spiral in action. Like, she very much does have implicit biases, everyone does, and it's important to recognize that and kind of correct it. You gotta keep in mind that your mind is a flawed thing, but that's good. That's the human equation, and there's something beautiful about it. But at the same time, you can see kind of the reactionary trajectory that her videos take. And at the same time, you can see how people distort what she says, misinterpret what she says about John Rambo or whatever, and go, no, Batman is a vigilante because he's a vigilante and DC says so I buy into that narrative, when it's like, no. And that's a very basic point that people should be able to agree on. Like, I don't think that's anything too controversial. Ultimately, though, like I say, I think it's a good study in identity politics and how certain ideas, even the most really basic, agreeable ones, can be misconstrued as like, oh, it's a sudden neo-Nazi territory. Oh my gosh, we're going down the right-wing pipeline. There's just too much skepticism put forward to, like, pretty reasonable talking points like modern villains suck. Like, yeah, I've heard plenty of people say that. I do have to wonder, is there a point when leftists can be convinced that AI is good for them? Like, is there a point where leftists will start going, oh, it's actually racist if you don't like AI because AI helps different people make the stories they always wanted to make? Like, I know a while ago, National Novel Writing Month got some heavy fucking scrutiny because they allowed the use of AI to write your novel for you, and that defeats the purpose of the whole challenge of writing a novel in an entire month, which I don't think is even necessarily feasible, which is why I've never participated in National Novel Writing Month. I do have to say, is there a point when people will believe something like that was said by NaNoWriMo, where they go, oh, it's ableist not to like AI because some people are fucking stupid and those people can't write. But what if they get a computer to write for them? If you don't like AI, you're ableist. So what else could be said? Not liking AI, oh, you're racist. Not liking AI, oh, you're sexist because you don't like AI. I think so many of my fellow leftists are prone to this kind of brainwashing where they just go, oh, Oh, and now the official narrative is that this thing is good. It's cool, actually. It's eco-friendly. It's safe. It's, this is a good thing, and I'm going to adopt it. Like, as of late, I've seen leftists say, oh, I'm going to stock up on guns, because they see fucking Instagram reels or TikToks or whatever that are like, guns are great. And they're like, okay, well, I'm going to buy up all the guns I want. And I say to them, hey, buying a gun, that doesn't make you a leftist. That doesn't make you a pacifist. I mean, there are certain types of leftists that have guns, but most of them end up getting shot. And as much as I like the Viet Cong, I like the Buddhist monk that lights himself on fire more because I recognize that he has the most conviction and a total pacifist in every regard. He just lights himself on fire, sits in the middle of the street. Hey, are any of my fellow leftists willing to do that? No, we're just going to stock up on fucking guns. Probably have the government come and shoot us. Okay, just instigate that fucking civil war. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to get a gun. You should adhere to pacifism. That's what I do. I don't have a fucking gun because guns are for cavemen. And I acknowledge this, and I stand by my principles, and no one is going to brainwash me that guns are cool, in the same way that no one is going to be able to market cigarettes to me. I've simply enforced too many barricades, too many roadblocks into my thought. My thought is not at all flexible.
I don't like smoking, and I'm not going to start.
Don't like cigarettes, don't like guns, don't like AI, don't like fascism, fuck ICE, fuck Trump, fuck sex, fuck Yahweh, fuck it, But my fellow leftists seem to have pretty malleable minds that can change on a whim. Just, suddenly I like guns. So I do have to wonder, is there a certain point when AI will be like the cool, progressive, leftist thing to like? Can the human mind be manipulated to that great an extent? Like, currently, it's a leftist position not to like AI, but really, with a mind control manipulation technology this extreme, can really stupid, gullible people who don't have the power of critical thought be convinced that AI is their friend or it's going to fix their life or anything like that? I see people who brand themselves as leftist buying into conservative propaganda, capitalist propaganda, saying, I'm going to buy a McMansion, I'm the big college degree holder, I make a shit ton of money and I'm on a constant voyage of self-improvement. This is a capitalist doctrine. It's straight from the mouth of Mr. fucking Monopoly. People my age don't even know how to have friends. We're just constantly on this fucking hustle grind treadmill of shit. It's going to kill us. Like, eventually people's hearts are going to start exploding. Their brains are going to start rotting away into nothing. Because even though we claim to be leftist, even though we claim to have the best intentions for the human species, we buy into this shitty propaganda like, oh, you need a college degree to live. Hook, line, and sinker. We all become fucking computer scientists, and we develop the machines that are going to fucking kill us, instead of just ignoring them and focusing on the real world. I think this is a problem. I think this is why the left is currently losing out in the political thought conflict, is because we're just too fucking manipulable. We're really easy to pawn. What I have to say is, if you buy into a conservative reactionary idea, you can buy into anything. I've seen that meme, you're not immune to propaganda. Well, they might not be, but I sure the fuck am. 'Cause, really, I'm done with this shit. If someone says to me, well, unfortunately, Nick, you're just living in a fantasy world if you don't think that everyone needs to stock up on AK-47s and Magnum bullets and get ready for the insurrection. Yeah, no, unfortunately, that's not real. You don't have to buy a shit ton of guns. And if you do, I'm not going to consider you a leftist, because I specifically consider myself leftist. One of the reasons is because I like gun control. I don't like there to be fucking guns everywhere. Guns are fucking awful. I hate guns. Fuck guns. And I'll believe that until I'm dead. Anyway, gun tangent aside, I wonder if there are going to be some reaction videos to this recent AI video from the Second Story about how AI is literally going to kill us all if we continue to use it. Which, I don't necessarily think we are all going to die, but we need to care about this sort of shit. We need to relegate AI to the past as a trend that has passed and is gone and is over with and progress towards something else. We really do need to do that, or things are not going to look pretty. And we might have a tremendous paradigm shift, like on a scale we haven't seen in a long time. And I do care. I mean, I am invested in this shit. I am very much invested in it, and I do care. But at the same time, I don't want my heart to explode. There's the nuance. I can't care about it to the point where it endangers my own physical health, but I do really care. I do really give a shit. And as a leftist, I do really hope that AI is not here to stay. I hope it leaves fucking soon. I fucking hate it. It disgusts me, and I will never get used to it. So I will just live the remainder of my life in perpetual misery. But I do think that once the current political administration is gone, by whatever means, whatever that happens to be, we are going to see a shift away from generative shit, because nobody actually wants it. It's not in the best interest of anyone, and it's fucking gross. So everything that the second story has to say on that front, I agree with completely. Now, I will make one important caveat here, because this video is meant to be in defense of these type videos, because I do find them interesting. But I will say, if I ever find out that this channel is sponsored by the Daily Wire or anything, you know, if it's another Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles situation, and she really is just a paid shill, just a hidden, you know, conservative propagandist that's sowing the seeds of discontent in the minds of idiots, then okay, you know, I'll take it back. Or if she ever joins a Daily Wire or, you know, Reaction TV or any of that Louder with Crowder pundit bullshit, then I'll go, yeah, you know, this content has really gone off the deep end. I'm not interested in it anymore. But it's really interesting to see an ostensible conservative say AI will kill you. That's really interesting. It's like hearing a Marlboro executive say, you know, smoking will kill you. It's like something they're not supposed to say, but again, I don't even know if what she considers herself politically, because she never says in any of these videos, and people just immediately dismiss her as, oh, this is the worst possible conservative propaganda. Oh, it'll kill you if you watch it. Oh, don't watch the video about how fan fiction is bad. That's too controversial a take.
So far, the only two videos I've seen of her are basically her just shitting on things for seemingly no reason.
But if it is ever revealed that she does have ulterior motives or gets some kind of incredible funding from a super PAC, then I'll go, yeah, these videos are pretty shit. I was gullible, okay, I admit it. From everything I can see, it's totally independent. She just has a Substack, so like, okay, you know, is it wrong to have a Substack? I don't like Substack, for the record. I think Substack is pretty bad for the creative ecosystem. That's why I don't have a Substack. If you want my book of essays, you have to send in for it. It costs $20. You have to pay for it. Same reason I don't have a Patreon or anything like that. I once joined a kind of supposedly radical leftist group, and it was pretty fucking boring. And I wanted to make a zine, obviously, to like promote the ideas of this group. But there was this guy in the group that was like, oh, I'll just write a Substack. And I was like, okay, wimp. We're not actually going to print off media and share it with the world. We're just going to write a Substack. Okay, have fun having your thoughts blend into the rest of the forgettable mush that comprises the internet. Good luck having no one care about your ideas or pay any attention to them. I'm going to print my ideas the fuck off, because then they literally can't be ignored in physical form. I'm going to shove my ideas into the masses' hands and say, here you go, take them. I don't like Substack. I have to admit, I'm not a big Substack fan. But from everything I can tell, that's all this is. She just has a Substack. You can pay her, you can subscribe to the Substack, whatever. And it's not the kind of thing I'd subscribe to necessarily. I mainly just like the videos because they're pretty well researched and pretty informative. But if you want to subscribe to the Substack, you know, go the fuck ahead. No one's stopping you from subscribing to any Substack. I just don't like Substack. But I'm not going to hold that against anyone. I mean, there's plenty of videos I like from people who have a Patreon. Just because I don't like Patreon, that doesn't mean I'm not going to watch the videos if they're interesting. I'm on the Substack right now and looking at articles like Very Carefully Educated to Be Idiots, how billionaire industrialists and their government allies deliberately limited intelligence and literacy. And reading that title, I would not think that's conservative propaganda at all to be talking about billionaire industrialists. That's a rather leftist talking point that most leftists might find some actual value in. So yeah, I think dismissing everything in the political dichotomy of identity politics and going, this is purely leftist, this is purely rightist, it's not going to work anymore. And I hear so many of my leftist peers talking about, oh, we hate the political dichotomy that you have to fit into the Democrat or Republican box. But then they just buy into the same exact dichotomy and go, oh, you know, this shit is just totally neo-Nazi propaganda or it's totally Soviet propaganda. It's either Triumph of the Will or it's Battleship Potemkin. And I just think, you know, most stuff isn't that extreme or doesn't have that much bite to it. Because people who fall into the trap of extremism eventually die because they're just too fucking intense and no one wants to be around them and they're just like fucking insufferable. Like extremism of any kind, just like AI, you know, it will eventually fucking kill you. Nonetheless, while there's plenty of stuff this channel says that I disagree with, there's also a whole heck of a lot of stuff that's said here that I do agree with and I totally get, and I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good point. Like that Batman isn't a vigilante. Why do we keep calling Batman a vigilante? I don't fucking get it. Do I believe that Batman is complete, you know, police propaganda like everyone says? No. I believe that at its most basic form, Batman's stories should just be fun, entertaining, pulpy adventures featuring the world's greatest detective. Doesn't need to be that much more complex than that. I do agree we should think critically about the media we consume. And, you know, we should give a shit, and we should think, here's how this media is influencing me to think. Because media, as Marshall McLuhan says, is the extension of man. The same way that AI is the extension of stupid men. AI is the extension of people who can't think, and so they just extend their slimy, filthy, disgusting, toxic tentacles over everything, instead of trying to improve the world through literacy. So anyway, yeah, I just find this current scenario where this content is being branded as completely conservative reactionary, unlike the level of Ben Shapiro or something, to be a bit disingenuous. I will say that some of the people who have made videos against this content about, like, modern villains are weak, are people who made videos that I thought were pretty good at one point. It's like you're all just going to hop onto this hype train about how none of these ideas have any merit, when in fact, like, they're just one person's perspective, and, you know, it can be a valid perspective that, like, Daredevil isn't a vigilante or whatever. There are some more controversial things said, obviously, like, oh, we need to go back to, you know, phonics or what, I don't know. Is that controversial? I'm not aware, I don't know much about phonics, admittedly, but maybe that would be a better system. I don't know. All I know is my generation is, for the most part, functionally illiterate. That is observable, and we do buy into conservative propaganda very, very fucking easily. There are way too many men these days who think that Trump is actually going to fix the world, or Kamala Harris is going to fix the world for that matter. We're in quite the shithole here, and I think the solution is to consume ideas and read a lot. Not to just go, oh, this idea is stupid because you don't like fan fiction. Well, fan fiction is leftist, and if you don't like fan fiction, you're right. I don't really think there's a useful dialogue going on there. So I have to admit that. That's the reason this video will only have like 300 views at the most, is because unlike other leftists, I'm capable of nuance in political discussion. I'm capable of thinking critically and, you know, giving credit where it's due. So to speak. I figured at the very least maybe this video will do a little better than my other recent videos. Maybe it'll feed into the drama mill, maybe it'll appeal to the algorithm in some capacity. What do you think about the second story videos and this sort of commentary on literature that, like, you know, fan fiction is bad, smut is bad, original literature is the way to go, or whatever? What do you think about it? I can't necessarily say I'm the big fan fiction fan or the big smut fan, because I'm asexual, but, you know, some people like smut a bit too much and should, like, read some other books. I know it's trendy. Anyway, yeah, that's it for this video. What do you think? Leave your thoughts down below, as always, and I will see you in the next exciting video here on the internet, the place that totally has not become a shithole since I started using it, thanks to the machinations of greedy, avaricious men and their disgusting schemes to control the entire world. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and buy Nicholas Comics. Sporish.